The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, employee well-being benefits to help you and your people grow, and amazing discounts on travel, insurance, and IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today by searching IKEA Business Network.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your own online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify's there to help you grow. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 36% better on average compared to the other leading commerce platforms. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Get a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/promo. Shopify.com/promo.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, the show that looks at the money behind the music industry with me, Steve Lamack, and Music Allies Head of Insight, Stuart Dredge. How's things with you, Stuart? Have you had a good week?
Yeah, it's been all right, you know. I watched Glastonbury on telly all weekend, and it wasn't fear of missing out. I was absolutely full knowledge that I was missing out, but it was quite fun catching up with it all.
Yeah, I mean, I've had quite a quiet week, actually, because it's the first time I haven't been to Glastonbury since 1995, so I had the chance to get on with some other stuff, including one or two meetings in my role as chair of Live, which were very positive. I didn't watch much from the Glastonbury coverage. I watched Idols, who I thought were good. But I mean, the interesting thing, there's not been many big stories coming out of Glastonbury so far. I guess I'm waiting for some of the stragglers to make it home to see what it was really like, to get the first-hand reports. But if anything comes up, we'll let you know. Away from Worthy Farm in the news this week, now could be a big story. A group of songwriters, including Jim and William Reed from the Jesus and Mary chain and King Crimson's Robert Fripp, are suing UK body PRS for Music over how it handles royalties from live performances. What are they specifically unhappy about then?
Yeah, well, what a supergroup, first off. I mean, you'd go to see them do a Glastonbury secret set, wouldn't you? King Crimson and Jesus and Mary. I don't know how you balance that, because one is very long performances and the other is famously short.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Be 20 minutes of it would be one song, a very intense 20 minutes of one song, probably.
Or a really long fight. So this is about, and this is one, I always get these stories, don't I? This is one of those stories that's kind of very, very complicated internecine royalty stuff, but it's about royalties for songwriters from live performances. And there's a group of 10 songwriters. And what they're saying is that the biggest songwriters get these so-called sweetheart deals. So they get better deals on the royalties from songs played at live concerts than the smaller songwriters do. But they're also criticizing PRS, saying it's very difficult, it's expensive. If you want to remove your rights from PRS and say, actually, I want to negotiate directly with promoters and venues and festivals to get royalties from my song to perform there. Which is where the caveats come in, because it's not just songwriters in this case. It's also a company called Pace Rights Management, which was set up by a bunch of people who are actually disaffected with how PRS music works. And they do that. So this company basically helps songwriters. So, you know what, we're going to pull our rights out of PRS. We're going to do it directly, get more money. And they're part of this lawsuit too. So although it's songwriters crossed with the Collecting Society, it's also this company that's trying to compete with it, right, saying, they're involved, saying we want to change the way they work. So it's kind of a competitive battle as well as songwriters protesting, I suppose.
Can you just explain what does a sweetheart deal entail then? Can an artist go and directly negotiate? Is this part of the problem?
Well, so The Guardian broke the story and they had some good details on it. So it was basically to do with the percentage you get of ticket sales from live shows if your songs are performed there. And this company Pace said they'd seen internal documents showing that certain writers get a lower administration fee. So in terms of when they get a royalty from a live event, some bigger songwriters are getting charged less administration fees than everyone else. So they're therefore getting more of the money. So it's a very it sounds like a very sort of narrow, specific way people get paid that's being argued over. But I think the real argument here is that if people don't like the way PRS does it and they want to withdraw their rights and do it themselves, that's too difficult. And that's the thing that's kind of part of this too. But the PRS did give a statement. I mean, they said its rules are approved by its members. It's been trying to have constructive dialogue with this company, Pace, for years. And so it's kind of saying that we don't think we've done anything wrong and we think it's all open. So, I mean, it's one of those, I say this every time, when someone files a lawsuit, very few of them actually end up in court. A lot of them get settled beforehand, and we never quite know what the settlement is. And that might be the case here, but yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, though, isn't it, that there seems to be a growing disquiet around PRS, who are taking a lot of flack at the moment, because we reported the other week, didn't we, that Blur drummer Dave Rowntree's on the warpath as well, launching an action against them, and the way the payments are split from the infamous, what's it called, the black box.
The black box royalties, yeah, which always makes me think of Ride on Time. No matter what context I hear the phrase, I just have Ride on Time now going in my head. But it is, I think the thing with collecting societies is but by definition, they often tend to be, it seems like you basically work with them and there's no other option. But there are starting to be alternatives, and when there are alternatives, that's when sometimes you get this kind of these kind of collisions of people saying, "Well, I want to go that way, and you're making it too hard for me." There's a case in Spain at the moment where two collecting societies are kind of having a battle in the courts as well. So yeah, it's becoming a more common thing that if people are unhappy with the way PRS for music or any collecting society does its business, they actually can challenge it. They can go to courts. Dave Rowntree is going to the competition tribunal. So in that sense, it's a good system. If you disagree with it, you can say so, and you can try and get it changed. So we'll find out if there's any kind of legs to this, I guess, as it goes forward.
Yeah. Talking of music rights and rights holders, Kanye West and the estate of Donna Summer have reached a settlement over their copyright dispute.
Yeah, so it's a weird one because, historically, before the recent not so goodness, Kanye West made some really famous, innovative use of samples, didn't he? I remember there was that Daft Punk song that he took and turned into something. He's always used samples in interesting ways. But this was about a track from his most recent album, Vultures One, called "Good Don't Die," which I sort of, in my notes I wrote, seemingly sampled Donna Summer's "I Feel Love." But when you listen to it, it literally is really obviously samples Donna Summer's "I Feel Love." There's no mistaking it. And her, obviously she's dead, but her estate filed a lawsuit. What they said was that not only had Kanye used instantly recognizable portions of the song, but he'd been explicitly denied permission. They told him, "You can't use this." And I think they said, "We don't agree with what he's been."
Right. I didn't realise.
So it seems like
that they'd actually vetoed the use beforehand, and then he'd just gone ahead anyway.
That's it, because I think they said they basically don't agree with his recent statements, didn't want to be associated with that. So yeah, there have been some dialogue of him presumably asking permission, them saying no. The song was actually pulled, so you can't listen to it on Spotify anymore. It's grayed out on other services. It's still on YouTube, I think. But yeah, so there was this lawsuit, and again, as I was saying, the lawyers have settled the case. We don't know how much, don't know who's paid who. They're paying one of those legal costs, and Kanye's agreed not to distribute or use the song anymore. So the Donna Summer estate has prevailed, but it's one of those things really. We've seen cases where it's a sample that seems to have been used and they're not quite sure because it's been covered up or it's been masked. But this was not only a clear-cut use of it, but it sounds like they'd asked permission and been denied and just did it, and that's not going to end well.
Yeah. Next this week, Don Henley has filed a lawsuit, while we're talking litigation, to recover handwritten lyric sheets, including the one that contains the lyrics to Hotel California.
Yeah, so it's Don Henley suing someone who isn't in the Eagles too, which is a good sign of how they get on. But yeah, this is all about 100 pages of handwritten notes and song lyrics from the mid-1970s when they were recording the Hotel California album, which came into the possession of a group of memorabilia dealers who were trying to sell them for auction from, I think it's 2012. It's quite a while ago this has been going on. And the story was essentially that Henley gave them to a journalist who was writing a book about the Eagles. They gave them to someone else. They sold them to someone else. They came into these guys' possession and they were trying to sell them. And Don Henley's view is, these are mine. They were stolen. They shouldn't be sold without permission. And there was actually a criminal case about this. So that in the state of Manhattan, prosecutors were bringing a case against these people. And it was dropped in March. And Don Henley's lawyers got some criticism because of some evidence that suddenly appeared that the judge suggested might show that it wasn't stolen, it was given away. And so they were criticised, the case was dropped. But at the time, Don Henley and his lawyers said, we're going to fight this in a civil action. And that's what they've done now. They've filed a civil lawsuit against this group of memorabilia dealers.
So what Don is saying? What Don's saying? What, that he hadn't given away the lyrics in the first place, or that he still claims that he owns the lyrics? Because if he's given them to a journalist, once you've given something away, it's not yours anymore, is it? To dictate what happens to well, in this case, this bunch of lyrics.
Well, that's it. And, it's one of those weird things where lyrics obviously are copyright. So I think he's arguing these things are mine. This is my copyright.
I see, right.
And I think they're arguing. So it's a case, I think, that he's saying essentially these were stolen. They shouldn't be sold. I think their defense is they were given away. And once like you say, you've given them away, you can't take them back just because someone is selling them. And regardless, I'd take a very careful legal caveat, not referring to this case because we don't know yet. But I think, generally speaking, as an artist, don't give this sort of thing away. Keep it somewhere safe. Whether it's your mum and dad have got a room that's a shrine to your career, which I know a lot of young bands have. Whether you have a lockup somewhere, when you get to a certain size, you might have someone who you might pay someone whose role is to store it. But keep all that stuff because it's valuable. If you're the Eagles, it's valuable. If you're a young band, you don't know yet.
Well, it's also a bit strange. I mean, years ago, because it used to be sort of accepted practice in the music industry that record labels would give out gold and silver discs to people who'd supported certain records. And we were lucky enough, myself and Joe Wiley, we were both given gold discs for the Stone Roses album, The Second Coming. And so I had this, and it's probably one of the most valuable things I probably owned at one point. And but War Child were doing a big charity auction. It wasn't long after War Child started, I don't think, and they were looking for things to auction off, memorabilia to auction off to raise money for the charity. And I said, well, this is probably the only thing I've got which is really worth out is this gold disc. So you can have the gold disc, and obviously it's got your name on it. It's presented to Steve. But I gave it away and it raised some money and that's all good. But of course, it's no longer yours then. So when the person who bought it at the raffle decides, no, actually, it's time to sell it on. I don't have the room or I want the money. So it gets sold on, then sold on again. And then you eventually see it advertised online. And I mean, on the one hand, I mean, firstly, it does look a little bit disrespectful if you've been given something which is, such a prized possession. They've gone out of their way to give you a gold disc, and then it looks like, because the label and the band probably don't know that it's gone to charity first off, but now it's just being sold on. Does it look slightly disrespectful? But you've got no, you have no ownership of it anymore. So. Be very, very careful what you do with anything which you prize and which is very identifiably yours. I guess that's the moral. That's the moral of the tale.
Well, it reminds me. Do you remember the Wu-Tang Clan did that thing where they made an album and made only one physical copy of it, and that ended up in the hands of a guy called Martin Shkreli, he was the guy famously who increased the price of a life-saving drug by 4,000%. To make money. So like a man who's got a checkered history, but he ended up as the owner of this album, which was probably not what the Wu-Tang Clan were envisaging when they did. So yeah, it's true. When you sell something to someone, they can sell it on to anyone they like, really, and you generally don't have a comeback. But I guess we'll find out. Maybe Don Henley will have a comeback, and
I mean, that's the thing you don't know. So there may be more to this story. We don't know what was actually said and what the deal was along the line as Henley, loaned out his lyrics or gave his lyrics away. We don't know what's been said. We'll find out if it, as you say, if it finally ends up in court again. Here's a couple of stories. Well, both of these are around recent threads on the show. The first on the topic of sponsorship, following on from something we covered the other week, the suspension of Barclays sponsorship, the deal that they'd struck with various Live Nation promoted festivals in this country, that deal has now been suspended. Now, South by Southwest, the big music music industry showcase event, which takes place every year in Austin, Texas. Now, they've announced that they're cutting their sponsorship ties with the US military. You might remember that, well, a number of artists, around 100 artists, pulled out of this event earlier this year because of the US Army's ongoing involvement with South by. Now, in a short statement, the festival has said, after careful consideration, we are revising our sponsorship model. As a result, the US Army and companies who engage in weapons manufacturing will not be sponsors of South by Southwest 2025. And I think this is interesting because, well, it suggests two things, really. One, that South by is actively trying to guard its reputation because, I mean, it was very hard last year to get a positive message out of South by when so many artists felt uncomfortable being there when the Army were sponsors of the festival obviously at the time of the conflict, the ongoing conflict in Gaza. So every story had a reference to bands boycotting the event. I mean, despite the fact that there was a lot of good stuff happening there, there was sort of this cloud over South by, I think. And I mean, obviously, I don't know how much money the sponsorship deal entails, but it does sound like however much it was for, it just wasn't enough to risk the public image of South by Southwest and its engagement with the music industry, I think. And then secondly, I suppose that, the reason for announcing it now is this will be the point where South by is sounding out guests for next year, and they wanted to make an announcement early so that some artists or speakers could feel more confident in signing up. And the only other thing I wonder is, do they have a replacement sponsor in mind, or will they just simply crack on without finding another one? And will that mean there's less money in the pot for next year? I guess we shall see.
Yeah, and that question is kind of sharpened because on Friday, another story broke in the Austin Chronicle, which said that South by Southwest had laid off 23 of its employees. And there was a quote from its co-president saying, this is impactful and difficult, and saying farewell to incredible team members. So it is official news. And it's not necessarily related directly or solely to the loss of this sponsorship, but it is a reminder that these festivals have people to pay and organizations to run, and losing a big sponsor does give them that challenge. And they're getting ready. They're doing the first South by Southwest London next year, 2025.
That's right.
And I would imagine, obviously over here, that the issue has been less about the Army and more about, in Barclaycard's case, a financial company investing in the arms industry and weapons manufacturers. So you would imagine South by Southwest would be kind of trying to swerve that and not doing a deal with Barclaycard, because that would be out of the frying pan to the fire. But very much.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, South by's history, I think they've had to juggle, I think, the amount of sponsorship and money that comes in with retaining the spirit of the event. And I think a few years, probably in the lead up, maybe just prior to COVID, where, everyone was there, all the big music companies were there. And I think even they realised that there was a point where almost South by was almost over-sponsored. And so they have pulled it back a bit, because I think it is important to retain their reputation and the spirit of, the early years of South by. So as I say, it'll be interesting to see where they go next, whether they bring in another biggish name sponsor, or whether they decide to, as I say, crack on without. We shall find out.
I'm a big fan of branded sponsorships going wrong or being bad, like not in the Army's case, but did you ever see the KFC DJ guy?
The KFC DJ guy? I don't think I have, no.
I'll send it to you. It's so it was the Ultra Music Festival in Miami, and they basically KFC booked Colonel Sanders to do a DJ slot. And what it was someone wearing a big Colonel Sanders helmet head doing a DJ set with lots of fried chicken graphics whizzing around the screen. And then it pans out to the crowd, and the crowd are resolutely not dancing. They're all standing there going, "What is this?" And you look at it and go, that is not how brands and music should interact. It was like famously kind of ridiculed. So yeah, you can get it wrong. And that was just embarrassing. But in the case of weapons manufacturers, it's more serious and a lot more controversial.
Here's the second of the threads which have coursed through the shows in recent weeks. Yes, it's this week's AI story. This week, over 50 music organisations have thrown their support behind the Principles for Music Creation with AI, a campaign spearheaded by Roland Corporation and Universal Music Group, intended to safeguard musicians' rights in the era of generative AI. This is interesting because out of all the labels, this is Universal once again apparently trying to proactively approach the subject of AI.
Yeah, they've taken on this role as the biggest label in the industry of being spearheading the kind of the pushback or the calls for regulation and things to be done properly. And yeah, this was announced in March, and it's one of many kind of initiatives saying we're going to have some principles for how AI should be used in music and how it should work well. But this is very much focused on music creation, music making. So obviously Roland make keyboards and a lot of electronic music instruments, so they're very, very key to that side of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
In launched in March, and they've got a set of principles which are kind of the same things we've seen before. So it's like humanity and music are inseparable. We've got to respect human created works. When AI is used, it's got to be transparent so people know. So familiar ideas, but very much focused on music making technology companies. And now more than 50 have signed up for this. So BandLab and Splice and Native Instruments and Beatport, like some of the key names in the music making technology world.
Yeah.
And what they're signing up to is saying, right, if we do stuff with AI, if we help people make music with AI, we're going to do it in the right way being as defined by the music industry. And it's kind of, it's part of a bigger picture at the moment. So we've talked a lot about the lawsuits that were filed recently of suing some AI music companies and the kind of legal side of it. But there's a bunch of things going on about the more positive, the kind of carrot to that stick, which is like, how are we going to do things the right way? So in the last week, I've written about a couple of new startups who are helping AI companies properly license music. There's a thing called AI OK that's come out of Dublin, which is focusing on responsible use of AI in the music industry. Like there's a whole bunch of things happening that are outside the lawsuits and the arguments are trying to say, right, well, what are the right things to do and how are we going to get people to sign up to them? So I think that's a good sign. We're not just suing people as at the industry, we're also trying to set the things in place to help the good eggs of the AI world.
And all this will continue until there is some legislation, some proper legislation, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is the music industry is lobbying very heavily governments around the world and regulators saying, well, this is how we think you should legislate for this. And in a way, this is all ties together, I think, because if you are doing the positive stuff, if you are doing the things saying, right, we're going to make it easy to license music, we're going to get together people to sign up to principles. If you're doing all of that, that's a stronger case when you go to a politician and say, look, we're doing our bit to make this well, but we need your help. So I think it all ties together. And I think Universal Music has been very, very kind of to the forefront of that, of like, right, we're going to do this, this and this, all these different initiatives. And that will then give us a stronger case to argue for new laws.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, employee well-being benefits to help you and your people grow, and amazing discounts on travel, insurance, and IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today by searching IKEA Business Network.
It's the Kia Summer Sticker Sales Event, so give your friends something to look at, like a B&B with an ocean view, an endless field of wildflowers, or a sunset that needs no filter. Make this a summer to share and save with a capable Kia SUV or powerful sedan. See your local Kia dealer or visit kia.com to learn more. Kia, movement that inspires.
Call 800-3334-KIA for details. Always drive safely. Sale applies to purchase of specially tagged 2024 vehicles only. Quantities are limited. Must take delivery by 7/8/24.
Finally, for this episode, and this is off a slight tangent, but the children's speaker startup Yoto has raised $22 million of funding. Why is this relevant to us? We've got a Yoto at home, which our daughter's got a Yoto in her room to listen to storybooks on, mostly at bedtime. But some people use it for music then as well?
Yeah. So Yoto is like a deliberately unsmart speaker, by which I mean it's not connected to the internet. It's not got an Alexa style voice assistant. It's not collecting your data. because it's for kids, like you said, so it's, you buy physical cars to plug into it, don't you? And it's stories, but it's also albums. So they've actually done deals with Universal Music Group and Warner Music Group. They've released albums by various bands. The Beatles have a Yoto album, I think.
Right,
and it's basically
okay.
a way. It's basically a way of giving kids a device that plays music that isn't their phone. And like you say, for things like bedtime, where maybe parents don't want them to have a connected device.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So yeah, it's raised $22 million, led by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, which obviously makes your ears pick up because that's Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook boss's investment firm, with his wife, Priscilla Chan. And so now Mark Zuckerberg's an investor in Yoto, sort of indirectly, alongside Sir Paul McCartney and the Roald Dahl family, which is quite a kind of a fun group of investors to have behind you. But yeah, I mean, Yoto is fun. The funniest Yoto story, and they might not thank me for telling this, but do you ever hear the Fat Bottom Girls story about Yoto?
I have not heard the Fat Bottom Girls story, which was around Yoto. No.
Well, so I might get Universal Music Group sending a lawyers around there. No, so basically, did a deal with UMG. They got a version of Queen's Greatest Hits Volume 1, but they, I think, kind of sensibly and tactfully left off Fat Bottom Girls from the version that was made for Yoto.
Right.
They obviously looked at it and said, maybe we'll just not put that one on because, it's people might complain. But then a Daily Mail spotted it and said that Yoto, or the Queen, had been hit by the woke cancel culture. And they had like enormous quotes saying it's been cancelled by the woke brigade, when in fact what it was like Fat Bottom Girls may not be on an album released for kids, which seemed good. So Yoto survived that brush with kind of Fleet Street's Gammon Brigade. And now it's pushing on. But it's like a success story. Like, it's a British company. It's actually a guy called Ben Drury, who used to be the boss of Seven Digital, a digital music firm.
Oh, okay. Right.
And I remember when he left Seven Digital, I remember him emailing and saying, I've got this new thing. I'm doing a Kickstarter for this children's speaker. Will you come to a launch event? And I remember thinking, that sounds nice, but I wonder if it's a niche. And now they've raised tens of millions of dollars, got big investors, big albums, and they're pushing on. So it's definitely one for parents to check out. If you're the kind of parent who's thinking, I don't really want my kid to have a phone in bed, but I like the idea of something to play stories and music on, it's a really nice, interesting device.
Yeah, I'd say we've got one, and it's great, and because you can use. They come with, as you say, basically what look like little credit cards that you pop in. Or you can connect your phone. You can have all the stories on your phone and just link from your phone to the speaker. But it's really good. Please tell me though. I'll buy a second one of these if the Beatles album was called John and Yoto.
It wasn't, but that, I hope if they're listening and they want to make an extra sale, that's an easy change to make.
Yeah, there you go. And that will be it for this episode. Thank you very much, as always, for listening. If you have enjoyed the show, please do subscribe in your podcast app and give us a review and a rating if you get a moment, because it really does help with spreading the word. Or, we'd be equally grateful if you simply wanted to go down the analog route and just tell a couple of mates about us. And finally, if you'd like to support the show, you can become a Price of Music fan or super fan for as little as £2 a month. Just go to patreon.com/thepriceofmusic to find out more. And any questions you have for us, because there will be another listeners' questions episode to follow this one later in the week. Anything that's always bothered you or niggled you about how the industry works, or if you're a musician yourself and you need some help navigating this terrifically odd business, email us at thepriceofmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, take care, everybody. Cheerio.